I don't know why anyone wants this. Dystopian is out. But I don't know, maybe it's coming back? Along with chokers and overalls and velvet. Let's do this. Is this you? The Hunger Games sound fun. I just started reading this year. I don't know what these are. Was Jennifer Lawrence in Star Wars? I've never read a trilogy before. Is Harry Potter a trilogy? Will these have happy endings? So dystopian, you want to read a is that what you said? You want to read a dystopian novel? Okay, here I am. My name's Christine. I'm here to be your guide. Dystopians have seen their heyday. I get the urge to read a dystopian every once in back in 2010. But maybe you weren't here for the rise and fall of the dystopian empire. Maybe you missed it. Maybe you were off not reading at all. Not to worry, I was there. And I was reading. Reading them all. And when I say all, I mean a lot of them. And they're all some good ones. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be expanding the definition of dystopia. To include end-of-the-world novels in general, because there are some end-of-the-world novels that they're not dystopian, but like, there's no other noob video I'm gonna be able to make for them. So they're in here with dystopian. I'm taking some liberties. So the thing with dystopians, right? The thing is, they all decided to be 3 books long. Why? I don't know. They just thought that was the cool thing to do at the time. Trilogy! So what happened was that we saw 100 million trilogies happen. They set up these cool, crazy stories in book 1, and then in book 2, it was still crazy and amazing. Then they were like, we only have 1 more book. Shit. And then that's where 75% of dystopians go. That third and final mishmash trying to end the story in 1 book. Very rarely is there a dystopian trilogy that is fantastic in its completion. And I think that's what led to the burnout. Why didn't they just give them a series? Why didn't they make it like 5 books, 6 books? Why? I don't know. It wasn't in style. Now, this doesn't mean that a trilogy isn't worth reading. I will guide you through the trilogies so you know which ones are worth it. Okay, let's get started. The first book I have to show you today is The Giver by Lois Lowry. I'm calling it dystopian. In reality, it's more of a utopian. The Giver is the first book I ever read that was dystopian-like at all. I had to read it in school, but I read it before school read it. Like, I found it on my 5th grade bookshelves in the classroom, and I just read it, and I loved it. It's fantastic. If you don't believe me, there's a Newbery Medal Award to back me up here. It takes place in a world where we've reset in this community. They all see in black and white so that everyone is equal and no one is different. And every year, every kid gets the same present for his birthday, and everyone's equal, and everyone's assigned a job, and everything is organized. And there's one guy called the Giver that holds all of the Earth's memories, and that's his job, to use his memories to make sure that we don't mess things up, because history can repeat itself if you wipe out history. I really, really enjoyed it at a young age, and then I enjoyed it even more when I had to read it in 8th grade. I read it again, and I think if I read it now, I'd get more out of it than I even did then. So if you haven't picked this one up, I highly recommend it. I'm gonna show you a classic. Back in 2008, started it all, and by it all, I mean The Rise and Fall of Dystopian, The Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. I wanna say this is my favorite complete dystopian series. Even though the 3rd book, like, a lot of people don't like the 3rd book. I liked the 3rd book the first time I read it. I still think that we got the entire story. I just think that she mashed it up. This could have been a 600-page book. But the first 2 books are phenomenal. The movie series is phenomenal. If you missed The Hunger Games, go read it. Like, it's hard for me to even imagine not being around for The Hunger Games, because it seems so recent, but it kind of wasn't. The book came out in 2008. This was 2009, and this was 2010. That was 7 years ago for the last book. I mean, we do have a movie series with Jennifer Lawrence, so like, it was hard to miss that. But if you did miss it, they were amazing. I was Katniss for Halloween. The movies are amazing. Like, it's worth it just to read the book, so then you can also enjoy the movies more. Read the gosh darn Hunger Games. Next series I have to show you is one I'm taking liberties on. It's more of an end of the world novel. There was a plague and it's wiping out the population. That's the kind of book we're looking at. It will lead into a dystopian novel. That's what the end of the world novels are, because dystopian came after the end of the world. We blew ourselves up. We had to reset, remake the entire government. That's how the dystopian society comes. So this is like pre-dystopian, and that is The Darkest Minds trilogy by Alexandra Bracken. This is one of my favorite dystopian trilogies as well. End of the world, pre-dystopia, there's a plague, and it leaves the children's with these abilities, but just children's of a certain age group. And so the adults send those childs to internment camps. And it's horrible. The characters are so great and they're super fun, especially the first novel. The second novel is fantastic too. I really, really love Never Fade. The first book was excellent. There's a whole road trip thing going on, which I loved, and the characters are just meeting each other and their dynamics are so much fun, and there's twists and turns and scary shit, and I love it. Never Fade is like darker and crazier and still fantastic. And then In the Afterlight was a little bit of an iffy third book. Like, it wasn't as fantastic as the other two. And I feel like it suffered from, I can't tell you because spoilers. It was still good. This trilogy is worth the read. I loved it. It's very well written. And they're making the movie. Darkest Minds movie is going into production. It has been greenlit. It has been cast. It is happening. I am excited. Next series I'm going to show you today is one you've probably read. If you haven't read it, you've heard of it. It is a dystopian, but for some reason, we don't really fix the government. And that is the Selection series by Kira Cass. This is one of those series where you're reading it and you're like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. But you're like, I have to read it anyway. There was 3 books. I don't have the first one because I got it on my iPad and I flew through it because I was like, oh my god, it's like watching The Bachelor, because that's basically what this is. It's like, how can we make a dystopian like The Bachelor? That's what this election is, okay? I don't watch The Bachelor, but I started watching it this season because someone from my town was on it. And I was like, oh my god, I went to high school with her, like, I have to watch this. But I could watching it made me hate myself. But like, once you start watching it, you can't stop. Like, I'll stand there, I'll be like, I'm just gonna watch a little bit because I want to see how she does. And then I'm just like, hour and a half later, I'm still standing there watching it, burning my eyes out. Ugh. Good news is, these aren't as long as a season of The Bachelor. Well, I mean, it might feel like it. They managed to stretch one season of the Selection Bachelor through 3 books. So the first book is Blue. The second book is The Elite. This one is, and then the one also, and then they were like, wait, there's more. There's The Heir and there's The Crown, which is in the other room. I don't know why I didn't get it. Maybe because of my intense hatred for these books, but like, also, I want to read them. I haven't taken the day to read The Crown yet. It takes you a day. Like, that's another thing. Like, it doesn't take long to read these books because they're addicting as all hell. So maybe you want that. Maybe that's the thing you want in your life. They're fun. I can't lie, it's fun. I have fun with these books, okay? As much as I want to rip them apart, I have fun with them. That's why I read them. That's why I own them. That's why I paid money to own these books. Now, I will read The Crown. To all of you looking at me right now and being like, Christine, it's been like a year and you haven't read The Crown. I told you I'm going to read it, okay? It's just a matter of setting aside that day to do it. I'm going to finish this. I started it. I'm going to finish it. So that's the Selection series. Let me just tell you a thing about dystopian that also is a thing. The less of dystopian you've read, the better the good books are gonna feel, because you haven't been numbed by the tropes that we see specifically a lot in dystopian books. You read these books out of the blue, it's like, wow, holy shit, that was so powerful. You read enough of them, you start to see similar tropes over and over again. And then you start to want to murder them because you're like, I've seen this 100 times. The first time I was like hysterical, crying. It moved me to my very core. And then the second time you're like, what the f***? I just saw this and I'm done with this. I am not having this again. Not again. See, this is what started to happen to me maybe at the end of 2013. At the end of the video, I'm going to provide you with a little, don't read these series back to back. guys. Oh, the next book I have to show you, I'm gonna show you a real good one, and I'm not being sarcastic at all. It's more of an end of the world novel. That is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. Stephanie Meyer's most underrated, underread, I don't know, actually, I haven't read The Chemist yet, so now I'm off balance. My scales are off. But this book is fantastic, and not enough people read it. They read Twilight and they were like, this isn't Twilight, let's not read it. But this is Stephanie's best book. It's so good. Oh, dude, the movie sucked, so don't look at it. Just pretend it didn't exist. So the good thing that we got out of that movie was Imagine Dragons. That's what I got out of it. Radioactive, that was the first time I heard it. It was before it exploded. So I don't know if that prompted the explosion or if it was just like a simultaneous radioactive explosion. Whoa. You're gonna start reading and you think it's real slow. Okay, that's what you're gonna think. The way it's put together, it's like you need the beginning to like pay off. And it's very mysterious because you're in this different dystopian world where shit's different because aliens have taken over Earth. It is so good. It's so good. It's so good. She said she was gonna make it a trilogy because it was during the trilogy times, but she didn't. She didn't, and I'm okay with that now. I've made my peace because The Host is fine within itself. Like, this is a great book within itself. I only expected more because she said she was gonna be more. She said that. Next, oh my god, I've read so many Dystopian. The next Dystopian I have here, and I don't even have the other two books. This is a trilogy. The first book is called Delirium, and I got it on my iPad. The second book is called Pandemonium. I lost that during my move. I can't find it. Great. Of course, I end up with Requiem, the third book. It takes place in a society where they view love as a disease because love does make you do crazy, irrational things sometimes. And people are like immunized to it with a surgery when they hit a certain age. And up to that age, no sexual activity is allowed to happen. They don't want anyone falling in love. The kids are the only people who still have normal human emotions running through them because they haven't had the surgery yet. The society is so interesting and so cool. And the second book in the series, Pandemonium, is actually one of my favorite second books in any dystopian trilogy. Like, I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. It flipped back and forth between two stories that intertwined beautifully, and I was really, really excited after the second book. And then I read this third book and I wanted to throw it through the window when I was done because it didn't end in like the love story that was happening. We didn't get any resolve for it. I would say pretend Requiem doesn't exist and just read Delirium and Pandemonium and then accept that as your end. Next, this is one of my favorites. The Divergent trilogy, in fact, by Veronica Roth. It has a powerful, inspiring message. I read it in the right time in my life, and it really had a big impact on me. It's super fast-paced and super exciting, and I loved it. I genuinely think like 95% of the people who pick up this book will love it. When I first finished this book, I literally couldn't imagine someone not liking it. I recommended it to everyone, and everyone came back to me and was like, oh my god, that was amazing. I'm so excited. And that's how I came out of it, like, oh, that was like, holy, what? No. If you haven't read Divergent, if you missed Divergent, don't look at the movies. If you want, you can like watch the first movie after this one and you'll feel okay. You'll feel good. But don't go any further than that if you haven't yet. Like, don't do that to yourself. Then we had Insurgent. Insurgent, still good. A little frustrating, but it was good, okay? And then we had Allegiant. You can watch my book talk after you read it, because I do think that this is a series, if you like dystopian, if you're interested in all dystopian, that you should read. That everyone I talk to, that like, I'm talking about like random humans in the outside world that weren't like reading all the time. Like, they would pick up Divergent and then they'd start reading things because Divergent was that good. Like, it was a Twilight for people. I don't even have these books with me. The Match series by Ali Condi. I read all three of these books. And the first book really moved me because I hadn't read a dystopian with this idea running through it. Art didn't really exist anymore. It was kind of like a utopian society. It reminded me most of The Giver, where things were very regulated. It was a very moving book. Match. This just could have just been Matched. Match is very like poetic and soft and nice to read and moving. I think this was a series that was peer pressured into trilogy dump. Got another end of the world novel here for you. The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I think I've talked about this enough. This is like an end of the world alien invasion novel. It's fantastic. It keeps you guessing. I loved it. I heard some critiques like they didn't know what was going on. That's the point of the book though, to like figure it out. And I Love that. It was like one of those books that was so good and then it got so much hype and then people were like, oh my god, it's so hyped. It's definitely not gonna live up to it. And then they go into it being like, oh my god, this isn't like that great at all. They like go into it with a closed, angry mind. And that's not the way to go into any book. So I encourage you just never to do that. The Fifth Wave is a trilogy and I haven't finished it yet. The second book, again, was like not as good because this should have been 2 books. 2 bigger books. But they were like, be a trilogy! Be one! I still have to read the last book in the trilogy. I love the mystery and the conspiracy surrounding this series. Series I have to show you is another trilogy. This is actually, I think, one of the best dystopian trilogies in its complete trilogy form. The Legend trilogy by Marie Lu. Legend and Prodigy are absolutely fantastic. These are excellent, thrill ride, exciting, everything. Oh my god. I love the concept. The United States has split into the Republic, which is under martial law, and the colonies. Colonies are run by conglomerates. Both sides have their issues. There's 2 amazing lead characters. They're so talented in different ways, and I loved watching them work together against the government. It's fantastic. And then Champion was a 3rd book that came at a time where I had read a lot of other dystopian books. I actually do believe that this is also a reading starter book. If you don't read and you pick up Legend and you read this, you could start reading because it's fantastic. And I believe that anyone who reads it will be like, oh my god! My favorite of these 3 is Prodigy. The Shatter Me trilogy by Tara Mafi. I don't have Shatter Me because apparently I lost that one. I had the ugly cover anyway. One of the really cool things about the Shatter Me trilogy is the writing style. It really makes this series stand out. Like, the story is told from this one character's point of view and we're in her head all the time, and you read her thought process and there's cross outs sometimes. She's like, no, I don't want to say that out loud. You know, it's really interesting and captivating. Tara writes a lot in metaphors and these beautiful, beautiful metaphors. Our lead character, she can't touch anyone because if she touches people, they die. So she's been in this jail cell alone in isolation for a really long time. She gets out of this jail cell and it turns out that there's actually more people with abilities out there. The character dynamics in this story are really interesting. I really loved Ignite Me. I enjoyed Shatter Me. Unravel Me was my least favorite because it suffered a little bit from that like middle book syndrome, but it still was really good. Like, there was still a lot of stuff in here that I was like, whoa. So, I mean, this is a good trilogy. I don't think it's for everyone because some people react poorly to the writing style, but I think most people will appreciate it. Angelfall series by Susan E. These are end of the world books and they're fantastic. They're like dark and gritty and funny, and I loved them. I loved the characters. I loved everything, and I haven't finished this series. I don't know where the middle book is right now. This is the first book. I have not read End of Days yet, and it is a tragedy. And I love how dark and weird this gets, but at the same time, it still feels really grounded and real. At least to me, it did. Like, the stuff that's happening in it is cool and different and weird. It doesn't feel like it's fantasy. So I wasn't sure where to place it. So I'm placing it here. But not least, the last dystopian I have to show you is the most recent one I've read. It's not really your typical dystopian. It's like a fantasy dystopian blend, but I loved it. Like, it's not like anything I've ever read before. It is so intense and crazy, and that is The Call by Pedro Gillen. It was so good, and it's so creepy. I have a full book talk discussing like all my thoughts and a better synopsis. If you want to read a good thriller dystopian feeling book that has that like, oh shit, I can't stop reading, this is fantastic, but like also creepy AF feeling, this is the book for you. I don't know if it's gonna be a trilogy or not, but it's definitely, I think, gonna be some sort of series. It takes place in Ireland, and Ireland is completely like shut down and isolated. Oh god, it's so creepy. The writing style is so interesting. I just loved it. That, my friends, has been the Noob's Guide to the Dystopian Galaxy. Dystopian. I can't wrap my head around it because I'm so burned out. But like, they are really cool books to read when you're not feeling like me. If you are at a different point in your reading life and you're having that dystopian craving, I hope I've given you some good options. I hope you found something that suits your fancy. I'm Christine. I make videos every Tuesday. Don't expect another Noobs video anytime soon. I will see you next time. Goodbye. Didn't expect to see me back so soon. Did you? I'm too young to know the Hunger Games. Peter Malark was a coal miner, right? I've never read a trilogy before. Is a trilogy 4 books? Is this the best one? I'm looking for a rebellious, strong female in a very repressed, depressing world that doesn't really resolve itself, but, like, it's a fun journey to take anyway.